What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Let's talk about the MLB standings as we are winding down. We are entering just about the final month of the regular season, the home stretch. American League East, Orioles still in first place. They're at 83-50 on the year, best record in the American League. Tampa's a game and a half back, so Tampa is right there. They've been playing really well. They've won eight of their last 10, so not too far back. So now Rays were in first round. The Orioles kind of overcame them when Tampa kind of fell into a big slump of his mediocrity. The Orioles kind of rose up, but now all of a sudden, Rays are right there. Then Toronto, the Red Sox, and the Yankees ran out that division. What an awful year for the Yankees. They've always been the team in MLB, and now they are buried in nothing. Not buried, but pretty far in last place. And they're 3 games under 500. And their playoff chances are pretty much dead. American League Central, Minnesota is in first right now in American League Central. They should win that division. They're 5 games up on Cleveland. But Cleveland brought in some reinforcements. Of course, as you heard a couple of days ago, a lot of teams placed a bunch of guys on waivers. Of course, the August 31st trade deadline has been gone for a few years now. And teams are just, basically giving up and know that their playoff chances are pretty much gone. And they want to, take a look at some younger players and look more towards 2024 than 2023. They put a bunch of guys on waivers. We've never really seen this before, but it does make sense why it's happening. It makes room for other players. May clears out some salary. So a lot of teams did it. The Angels released a bunch of guys. 3 of the guys they released were starting pitcher Lucas Giolito and relievers Matt Moore and Ronaldo Lopez. They got Giolito and Lopez from the White Sox at the trade deadline. Giolito had a good year at the White Sox, but has really struggled since coming over in a trade. So they just waited there. And Ronaldo Lopez had an okay year out of the bullpen. But Matt Moore has been a nice piece out of the bullpen. All 3 of those guys were claimed by the Cleveland Guardians. So Cleveland trying, maybe, to make a run, because that division is very bad. Going to 69 and 65. Only 4 games over 500. They're in first place. Cleveland's 5 back right now. They're 64 and 70. And they're still only 5 back. So I guess the Guardians, who sold at the deadline, they traded Josh Bell, who was one of their better power hitters. Wasn't having a great year, but for a team that's not good offensively, he's a guy, the guy was one of their better power bats. He traded him to Miami. They traded Aaron Savali, who was their best starting pitcher this year, traded him to Tampa. I think they moved somebody else, too, that I can't quite think of. So they moved a couple pieces. A team that was already really mediocre and wasn't that far out of the division. They just traded a bunch of pieces. But now they bring a couple of reinforcements, so hopefully Giolito can pitch like he did in Chicago this year. He can probably help their rotation. Still without Shane Bieber, and had been for a while. So I heard early in the year September return was possible. So we'll see if they can get him back soon. Now they can get Ronaldo Lopez and Matt Moore to boost their bullpen. They get the Tigers, who a week or 2 ago were like about 7.5 out. We thought, maybe, just maybe, you never know in that division, but they've lost 5 in a row, 9.5 out. Their chances are pretty much gone. And the White Sox, and of course the Kansas City Royals, who were already eliminated from playoff contention. American League West, very exciting. The Seattle Mariners and Houston Mariners are tied for first. Yes, the Seattle Mariners are tied for first place with Houston. Texas is a game behind them, so 3 teams within 1 game of each other. You got the Angels, and of course the A's are just god-awful, already eliminated from playoff contention, but very exciting division. Seattle has just been phenomenal. Through June, they were very mediocre. Were barely even in the playoff race. Looked like they would sell at the deadline, but over the last 2 months, they've been one of the league's best teams, and of course, Houston's always been there. Texas is struggling right now, but still only a game out of the division. National League East, Braves lead the Phillies by 13.5 games. They got the division pretty much locked up. The Mets are there in last place. So, a very disappointing year for my Mets, to say the least. And I want to talk about something. The Pete Alonso trade thing is so stupid. It's so stupid. The Mets have let every great player slip through their hands throughout the years, outside of David Wright. Remember they had the five aces, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Harvey, Matz, Wheeler? Remember we thought we were going to have that famous picture of all them holding the ball, and you also had Bartolo Colon in there? All of them are gone. They're all gone. You know, DeGrom was the best out of all of them. He ended up being a possible Hall of Famer. But, you know, injuries kill him in the end, then he leaves. You know, Syndergaard had injuries and other stuff that derailed his career. Harvey had injuries and the field stuff that derailed his career. Matt's never really reached his potential, always hurt. And Wheeler didn't really break out to his last 2 years with the Mets, and then further broke out once he left the team and signed the big deal with the Phillies. Like, they've let every big name player slip through their hands. Like, how many really good free agents have they lost? You know, Daniel Murphy coming over a career year, had that legendary postseason in 2015. They don't re-sign him, and then he goes and almost wins a batting title in Washington. And Justin Turner was a really good contributor, you know, a talented young player. They let him leave in free agency, and then he comes an all-star player with the Dodgers. Of course, now he's with the Red Sox. Like, the Mets always do this. And then we finally got an owner that's willing to spend money in Steve Cohen. You know, they've finally built up a good farm system to the point where, like, all right, there's hope that they could develop a lot of these guys, and in a couple of years they could have a really good young team that could compete for a long time. As bad as the year has been, there is hope that, in a year or two down the line, even next year, they could be a playoff team. And, you know, the one we finally have, you know, a superstar level guy. You know, they've had a couple of guys who, you know, ended up being Hall of Fame guys recently. You know, Mike Piazza, you know, David right before the injuries. When it comes to homegrown guys, that lifetime Mets outside of David Wright, his final game was in what, 2019. Last time he was actually a full-time player is what, 2016. Last time he played a full season was probably like 2014. Like, what other homegrown guy is a lifetime Met? The only guy who has a chance is Nimmo, because he's a homegrown guy who they re-signed to a 7-year deal last offseason, or 6 or 7-year deal, whatever he got. So the Mets finally have a guy that can do that. P. Alonso is the guy who's going to be one of the greatest power hitters of all time. He's going to, if he stays with the Mets long term, he'll break every offensive category in the history of the Mets franchise. He'll be in the 500 home run club in MLB history. And that's the guy we're considering trading. Really? Come on. Give me a break. So they're going to trade him. And the toxic, clubhouse thing is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Unless P. Alonso is the greatest actor of all time and needs to go to Hollywood, he seems like the complete opposite of that. And now all of a sudden, like, all these players are Mets players are saying, like, they want to meet with Steve Cohen after the season to tell him, don't trade this guy, please extend him. Like, I just don't get it. Like, his batting average is a little bit down this year. He's a 270 hitter hitting like 220, 230. His on base, he's usually like a 340, 350 on base guy, at least 330s. His on base is probably like 310, 320. But he's got like 39 homers, almost 100 RBIs. His slugging's like 520, which is right in line, if not better than his career average. Outside of his batting average being a little bit down, which is across the board on this Mets team. And then his on base percentage, and me, like, yeah, I want Alonso on base, but I want Alonso's there to hit home runs and just mash, not necessarily just be like an on base guy. The dude last year had 40 homers and 131 RBIs. He's not going to get to the 131 RBI, but he's going to have over 100 RBIs this year, and he'll certainly have over 40, if not 50 homers this year. You know, if he has 46 and 110, that wouldn't be out of the question based off how he's playing right now. You guys going to have, you know, outside of 2020 in the screwed up pandemic year, the dude has done nothing but rake. His rookie year, he hit 53 home runs. He set the rookie record for home runs in a season as a rookie. He did 53 with 120 plus RBIs. And then in 2021, when everyone sucked, everyone was screwed up that year, he hit like 37 home runs and had like 90 RBIs. Last year, hit 270 with 40 homers and 130 RBIs. I thought should have gotten more love in the MVP race. This year, he's going to have at least 40 and 100. And that's the guy you're slamming. the Mets year has gone as poor as it could, but slam, Max Scherzer for just underperforming as poorly as he can, $43 million a year. As poor as he finished last year. Supposed to be an all-time great, one of the league's best pitchers, and he goes out and has a 4 ERA. You kidding me? Justin Verlander, reportedly being a diva and clashing with other players, and calling out the analytics, which I don't mind of him giving feedback. And clashing with Max Scherzer. Didn't pitch like his contract and the player that he is to his last 7 starts with the Mets. Slam GM Billy up for this awful roster construction. How slam Buck Showalter for just, forgetting everything he did last year, improving that, he's just that kind of manager can get you to the playoff but no further. Slam all the other veterans that have not, played to the back of their baseball card. Daniel Vogelbach, Marcano, who's not here anymore, Slam all those guys. Jeff McNeil until recently. Slam them. Don't slam the one constant. Who's the one constant outside of Alonso? I guess, Brandon Nimmo, Kodai Senga. That's about it. Tommy Pham was really good, but he's now in Arizona. David Robinson's very good. He's in Miami. He's really struggling in Miami, too. He's lost the closer role in Miami. He's been horrible since he came over in the trade. Slam Carlos Carrasco was supposed to provide innings in the back of the Mets rotation. You're making $14 million a year. You're over 6, and they just waived him. His career's probably over. We'll slam Pete Alonso. Ridiculous. And I hope they extend him any offseason. National League Central has also been a fun division. Milwaukee Brewers in first place right now. They're 3 games ahead of the Cubs. They're 6 games ahead of the Reds, and the Pirates and Cardinals run out of that division. Cardinals will have a rough year. Yikes. And Dodgers have ran away from the National League West. They're 14.5 games clear of San Francisco. Let's look at the wild card standings. The American League, Tampa's the first wild card. Whoever doesn't win the American League East, Tampa or both will have the first spot. So Houston's the second wild card. They're technically tied with Seattle. But Seattle's got a higher win percentage by, barely. Seattle's got 1 less win and 1 less loss. So that's just a games played thing. And then Texas is the last wild card right now. Toronto is 2.5 games back. Boston has fallen 6.5 out. They've been struggling. That's basically everyone else is out of the race. Yankees 10 games out. What a disaster for the Yankees. And the Yankees are starting to call up their prospects finally. They called, Everson Pereira, one of their top prospects. He's with the team. They just called up Jason Dominguez. They're going to be calling up. He's coming right from AA. I know as well. I think that those Oswaldo Peraza and Oswaldo Cabrera are going to start to get some more playing time. Got Austin Wells in AA. He's got some strikeout issues and he's not good defensively, but he's got home run power at this point. Their starting catcher is freaking Kyle Higashioka with a 220 career hitter, if that. The backup is Ben Rortfe, who probably shouldn't even be in the league. Might as well give him a shot. And going back to the Mets are calling up Ronnie Mauricio, the number 4 prospect. Us Mets have been calling for it for months. Middle infielders had a really good year at AAA. And he will be called up tomorrow. Friday. Then you got Cleveland, who's, sort of in their division because of how bad it is, but obviously not making a wild card. Then the Angels, Tigers, A's, Royals, and Athletics are out of it. Royals and Athletics are officially eliminated. National League wild card. You got, by the way, Atlanta leads the Dodgers for 4 games for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Philadelphia's the first wild card. They built a pretty good lead. They're 3 games ahead of the Cubs and 5 games ahead of the Giants. Cubs are the second wild card. They're 2 games ahead of the Giants, who are the last team in right now. Arizona is a half game out. Cincinnati is a game out. Miami is 3 games out, though. They've been struggling. And then San Diego's fallen 7.5 out. Another disaster. And all that money, and they're 10 games under 500 right now. Yikes. The Washington Nationals are 7.5 games out of the playoffs. The chances of getting in are very slim, but still. This really inexperienced rebuilding Washington Nationals team. They're only 10 games under 500. This team might win 75 games. They're trending in the right direction for sure. And obviously the Mets are 8.5 games out. And the Pirates, Cardinals, and Rockies round up the National League. Last week, Steven Strasburg announced his retirement. Had a really good career, but had hasn't barely pitched the last few years. He's recovering from thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. Has not gone well. He's had a lot of arm problems throughout his career. How the injuries have really kind of like almost ruined his just way of life. Just he's like he would like start rehabbing and then like he would be trending towards a return, and the next day he'd wake up and have arm pain. So it's a shame. One of the most live arms I've ever seen. Legendary postseason in 2019, World Series MVP in 2019. He announced his retirement. So that contract did not work out for the Nationals. So Shohei Ohtani is having Tommy John surgery, as I mentioned, but he's not having Tommy John. He's torn ACL. I'm not sure about Tommy John, but he will hit the rest of the season. Padres reliever Robert Swirls got to spend 10 games for the sticky stuff. I heard he's appealing, but he got caught with that. They got to really clarify the sticky stuff thing. It's kind of annoying. It's not very clear. The Orioles closer, Felix Bautista, is on the injury list. He's got a UCL injury. He might miss the rest of the season. That'll be a huge loss for the Orioles, who right now are the best team in the American League. Felix Bautista is maybe the best reliever in baseball this year, or he'll probably be a reliever in the year in the American League, if you ask me. You might not have him for the rest of the season. That'll be a big loss. The Guardians DFA'd Noah Syndergaard. What a fall from grace from him. He first went with the Mets, looked like a superstar. Had a great rookie year in 2015. Was an all-star in 2016. Since then, a lot of injuries. He was always running his mouth and his way out the door in New York, and he's had a really rough year. He ERA of like 6.5 this year. He started this year at the Dodgers was really, really bad. They traded to Cleveland for Adam Rosario. First couple were okay. The last couple were just as bad as we will the Dodgers. He was DFA'd. Bo Bichette is back on the injured list with a quad strain, so he was back for maybe a week. So better hope he doesn't make too much time because Toronto needs him because they're struggling right now. They're 2.5 games out of the playoffs. Without Bichette, it's going to be very hard for them to get into the postseason. The Houston Astros activated Michael Brantley, who we have not seen since June 22nd of last year. So he's been out over a year. So he missed over 14 months of action. But he's back. He's a great hitter. He's never been able to stay on the field, right? But whenever he's healthy, he's one of the league's best hitters. See what he can give the Astros in the last month of the season. Like I said, a lot of MLB players were waived. Carlos Carrasco from the Mets were waived. Harrison Bader, the Yankees center fielder, was also waived. He was claimed by the Cincinnati Reds. So he'll be joining the Reds for the playoff round. It's a good move for the Reds. And get some another piece. He's maybe on their bench. He's an okay hitter, really good center fielder too, defensively. Tigers waived reliever Jose Cisnero, and the White Sox waived starter Mike Clevenger. So that was an interesting one. And the Yankees released Josh Donaldson. Thank goodness. He was trying to make it. He looked like he was on his way back from the IL. We thought he'd be out for the year. But in 102 at bat, he's hitting 147 or something like that. He's hitting like 140. So really isn't helping the team. Quick hockey news. Junius Donskey announced his retirement. He's had a lot of injuries the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, he was a solid player. Real solid player. Was on the Sharks 1 point, but last couple of years, a lot of injuries. He really hasn't played much, and he's retired. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are extending their head coach, Sheldon Keefe. They give him an extension. He's led them to the playoffs. He's been there, but he's only won one playoff series, of course. But he's under contract for another 4 years. Which I don't mind. At some point, if they can't, advance far in the playoffs, like, what are you supposed to do? Y'all make a change at some point, but he's gotten to the playoffs every year. They've been at least a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference, really every year he's been there. I think their roster construction, I think, is a little bit more the problem. Just think why they let Kyle Dubas leave, their GM. I feel like Brian Shanahan, makes like his GM, run everything by him. So I really think that's something that just isn't working right now. Like, look, they can score of anybody. Of course, they locked up Austin Matthews, and I do think they'll lock up William Nylander, but they spent so much on all these really good forwards, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. that, there's nothing left for defense and goaltending, which is why outside of Morgan Riley, their crop at defenseman isn't great. A couple of years ago, Jack Campbell had a really nice year, and then they didn't have money to re-sign him. And this past year, they had Ila Samsonov and somebody else. So the goaltending hasn't been, wasn't great last year because they spent it all on all these really good forwards. I mean, these guys are worth their money, but at some point, you got to, maybe we should move one of these contracts. Problem is, the contract they should probably move is John Tavares, and people are like, all right, Tavares is on the back nine of his career. He's still really good, but on the back nine of his career, he's due, $11 million a year for a bunch of years? I don't want that. You're not trading Matthews. I don't think you're trading Marner. Even Nylander you should keep. So, out of that 4, you should probably move John Tavares, but that's the hardest contract to move. So, I mean, you can't, should you... You already can't trade Matthews. So if it's Marner or... It's probably Nylander because he only has one more year on his deal. They're trying to get him extended right now. I wonder if maybe they should move him. Get a young piece or two back, get some draft picks back, get a little bit of salary relief, and maybe down the line can help them, improve their defense and goaltending, which is, for me, has been their issue for a long time. Every year they're like, top 3 in Eastern Conference. Like, oh, this is the year, and then they lose in the first round. And you're like, what happened? Like, defense and goaltending. That's what you need to win a Stanley Cup, and they just didn't have it. They haven't had it in a while. On to NBA, we got Shorthorns re-signed P.J. Washington, 3 years, $48 million, so he's back in Charlotte. The FIBA World Cup, USA beats Greece. Last week they won 109-81. Also, Greece had 15 points to lead the way. And Canada moves on to the second round, and their most recent win, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, had 27 points. Canada's got a really good team here. They got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray in the back row. They got Andrew Wiggins. Even they got RJ Barrett. They got a very good squad. Might even be better than the American squad. Which to me, is good. Obviously you got Jalen Brunson, you got Anthony Edwards. The team is very good, but there's some guys on that team aren't starting. Like Josh Hart's on my team. I love Josh Hart. I think he's a perfect fit for this. I'm glad this is a game of 4-year extension. Does he deserve to be there over I don't know who else? He's not a star. He's not a star on his own team. I feel like you shouldn't have on these national teams if a guy is going to start on his own team unless your team is really stacked. He's like the 15th guy on the bench. Okay. I mean, Hart was the last guy to be named to the roster. And I don't know how big his role is. But to me, if I look at USA's team, Canada's team, you could argue is better than the US team. So college football is starting. So I'm gonna, obviously season 4 has started. Second episode of season 4. I'm gonna try to get some guests on when I do game picks. We had, of course, we had week 0 happen recently. Number 13 Notre Dame blew Navy out of the water, 42-3. Sam Hartman for 251 and 4 scores. And number 6 USC handled San Jose State, 56-28. Caleb Williams for 278, 4 scores. Won the Heisman last year, is a Heisman favorite again this year, and he's the projected number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. He is drawing comparisons to Patrick Mahomes. So I'm gonna go out. We got Thursday's game is number 14 Utah against Florida, and then we got the whole slew of games Saturday, and then we even have a couple games Sunday, and then we have a Monday night game. Just so you guys know, I'm gonna be starting another podcast. It's gonna be with Justin, who y'all know he's been on my show. We do Jake and Justin in the morning together. Ashley, who's been on my show plenty of times. Also, Liam's gonna be involved as well, in some sort, whether he'll be in front of the camera, me, or behind the scenes, maybe a combination of both, I'm not sure. I think he's been once or twice in front of the camera, and he's helps me a lot in the back. It's actually for a class that we're doing, but the assignment, it's a year-long assignment, so we're going to do that soon. So I don't know if we'll incorporate that into that, but yeah, that's another podcast I'm starting, so I'm not sure when it's going to start, what that means, how often we'll do Justin will do Jake and Justin in the morning, but keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, I'll do for today, I'll just do the game picks for the game that's going to be happening tonight. Hopefully, by the time you get to see him, the game hasn't started yet. I'm not sure what time you get. Well, it's 2:30 Eastern time in the afternoon right now. Number 14 Utah against Florida. I'm taking Utah. Florida, they're not that good. They're far cry from what they once were. Being of Florida, the Swamp Kings documentary, not good. I'm sorry, not that good. It wasn't bad, but they focused. Everyone wanted to see all the turmoil. Like, all those guys that got arrested and had off the field stuff, and like Aaron Hernandez, maybe not, go too deep into, that he killed a man and then hung himself in prison. They already made an Aaron Hernandez documentary for that. And obviously he isn't here to speak for himself. And you got all of his former teammates and coaches, being interviewed on the documentary. But go into going a little deeper on him. Like, what kind of guy was he? That kind of go into a little deeper on Tim Tebow. Like outside, I think it was 4 episodes. Like the second episode, they went in a little bit on the off the field stuff. But to me, it wasn't deep enough. They didn't go deep enough on Tim Tebow. He wasn't enough for me. They did go deep on on Urban Meyer. To me, Urban Meyer was a little bit too featured. I know obviously he needs to be featured. I mean, the 3 biggest names in that team when it comes to just shock value are Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, and Hernandez. Of course, Aaron Hernandez, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So, and Meyer and Tebow got to be very involved. But it was really an Urban Meyer PR piece to me. Like, it was just him. Like, to me, like, it was basically just Urban Meyer's way of just showing. Because to me, it was like he's obviously got a lot of heat for that disastrous tenure with Jacksonville Jaguars. He's like, all right, this is a way to kind of show, like, this is just who I am, trying to take the heat off of him is what it kind of felt like to me. You did see, like, kind of why he failed in the NFL, like, how, like, just intense his practices were, and just, like, something to, like, when you're with 18 and 20-year-old kids, you're able to manipulate them, like, I'm above you, I'm making a lot more money, making more money than you, I can take away your scholarship if you don't do this. In the NFL, it's like, dude, I make more money than you. Shut up. What are you going to do? Cut me? Fine. Do it. I'm your starting receiver. I'm a 5-time Pro Bowler. What are you going to do? So they went deep on that, but not deep enough on the other stuff. Like the Pouncey twins, who are a big story for all the stuff that happened with them. Nothing on that. Cam Newton was maybe mentioned once. I know he was the backup, but still, you could have gone more like the backup quarterback was a NFL MVP, a college star in his own right. Obviously at Auburn, like that was the backup. They could have went deeper on that. No. They could have went deeper onto like Tim Tebow's career, how he went from a college star to a first-round pick, flamed out in the NFL. He went and played minor league baseball. Then he had all the religion stuff. Then he came back as a tight end. Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, lasted 2 preseason games. Then became a college football analyst. Like they could have gone a little bit deeper. It wasn't that good. They focused too much on like, the team. Like we all know the teams were good. Look, they had a zillion NFL players on it. And one of the greatest college football head coaches of all time. They won that those teams won 2 national championships. Like we all knew that. I'm not saying don't go into that. Maybe you have an episode that like is mostly on that, but the most of it should have went into all the turmoil with it, and it wasn't enough. It was basically just Urban Meyer just saying, "Oh yeah, I had intense practices," and Tim Tebow saying, "Oh yeah, the team was really good." Like, yeah, no kidding. As for my predictions for the college football season, I will say my Heisman pick. I'm gonna say Marvin Harrison Jr. The dude is a stud. Wasn't for Caleb Williams, he'd probably be the first pick in the draft. He shouldn't go. I think he'll be the second pick. I don't know how he ends up out of the top 3 as long as he's healthy. So obviously he wins the Heisman. For my college football playoff, I'll say Georgia. It will be number 1. Number 2, I'll say is Michigan. Number 3, I'll say Ohio State. And number 4, I'll say Alabama. I want to be a little bit less boring, but Georgia, I know that they've lost a lot of pieces. They've lost a lot of pieces of that stock defense, mainly to the Philadelphia Eagles. But the year before, they did as well, and the defense was still dominant, and the team was still dominant. They haven't lost in 2 years. Like, yes, I know it's boring. Say, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama. I just don't know any team that's clearly better than them. I mean, I think USC's really good. They got probably the best player in the sport, in Caleb Williams, but to me, Lincoln Robbie is an overrated coach. He's never been able to win a big game. They don't play any defense. They got up 28 points to San Jose State. They scored 56, obviously. Their team's scoring. Lincoln Robbie teams, they're going to score a lot. They're going to pass, and pass some more. They're going to score 40, 50 points every week. But they're also going to, when they run into a good offense, they're going to struggle. Like, defensively, they're not going to be able to stop anybody either. They might score 40, but they'll give up 42. So I'm not sold on them for that reason. I know, like, Notre Dame could be a sleeper. They're ranked like 12th right now or something. They went into the year ranked 13th. They actually have a quarterback. They have a quarterback now, with Sam Hartman, the transfer from Wake Forest, who's pretty good. He looked good against Navy, though Navy's not good. But still, they can't win a big game for their life. I don't think they're quite being a top 4. Tennessee was a top 16 last year. Lost Henry Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. So can't really trust them. TCU was the 3rd best team last year. Came out of nowhere. Lost a lot. So I doubt that they'll get back there this year. I know, like, Tech could you look at Texas being all right? They're the 11th best team. Could they make a jump? I don't know yet. I know, like, obviously the quarterback room there is crazy. They're finally showing something, but Texas every year they always teases the elite team, and then they end up going 7-6. Clemson is still there. I know, Florida State's ranked 8th, and they're ranked 9th. I can still see them winning the ACC. They're probably still my pick to win the ACC this year. But the years of them being, a perennial top team, I think are gone. I think they could be a top 10 team every year and be the favorite in the ACC, but especially now that Florida State all of a sudden is finally starting to turn the corner again. UNC's football program is having a lot of success, with bringing Mac Brown retirement. You got Drake May, who might be a top 5 pick in this next year's draft as your quarterback. They can't just ram through the ACC anymore. It's actually somewhat of a challenge. So I'll go with, I don't have them in the top 4. Alabama, I can see them missing it, and I'm not further thinking from an Alabama fan, but again, I just don't see a team that's just clearly better than them. And regardless of who the quarterback is, what the roster looks like, first of all, I think the roster is still really good. They have the greatest coach probably in the history of the sport, Nick Saban. I'm not going to bet against him. I'm just not. And some rumors of the last 4 teams remaining in the Pac-12 are Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State. The Big 12 is possibly looking to add them. So we're at the Pac-4, which might end up soon enough be the Pac-0, maybe in a year or 2 or something. It was roster cutdown day in the NFL. So we had a lot of stuff that happened. The Browns traded Josh Dobbs and a 7th-round pick to the Cardinals for a 5th-round pick. Means a couple of things. Means Dorian, whatever his name is, Dorian something Beckham, DTR, forgot his second name. He's now the backup in Cleveland, looked phenomenal in preseason. And the Cardinals cut Colt McCoy, and with Kyler on the pup list, which means you missed the first 4 weeks of the season, Josh Dobbs might start. It's either him, who's got 2 career starts, he's been there for a week, or 5th-round rookie Clayton Tune. Arizona will be bad. And the 49ers traded Trey Lance with Dallas Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. They traded 3 first-rounders to get him, which turns to Jalen Wild, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb for the Dolphins, and the other pick turns to Chad Tindall, rookie linebacker for Miami this year. And he played, 6 games, and he getting a trade for a 4th-round pick. Maybe the worst draft day trade ever. Pierce trade Pierce Strong, a young running back, to the Browns for offensive tackle Tyron Wheatley Jr. Actually, I do like that move for the, honestly, for both sides. Strong was going to have a role with Zeke there, really. He's really going to be a depth piece. And they need, O-tackle is an area of weakness, so they get some depth. In Cleveland, has plenty of offensive line depth, but the depth behind Nick Chubb running back is a little thin. And with Jerome Ford is the number 2 back, so Pierre Strong's probably a better number 2 back than Jerome Ford. The Giants cut James Robinson, who's been thrown out like a hot potato. Last year, Jacksonville traded him to the Jets. The Jets barely played him. He signed with the Patriots, who didn't even cut him before OTAs. And the Giants picked him up when they couldn't agree to cut him with Saquon at first. Now he just got cut. He was really there. God forbid, Saquon requested a trade or sit out the season, and he needed a experienced running back in there. We're going to make a trade for Kevin Dotson and give up Dotson a 24 4th. I think for a fifth. I think for a 25 fifth. So he was a backup guard for the Steelers last year. He's probably going to start for the Rams because they cut Logan Bruss, who was a 4th rounder, I think, last year. So they'll probably start him, and then Steve Avila, who they drafted in the 2nd round this year. The Texans are Christian Kirksey, who led the team in tackles over the last 2 years. So a very interesting move there. I'm sure he'll get picked up. Just got Bam Knight. Just too many cooks in the kitchen. Elsie Brees Hall and Delvin Cook. Michael Carter, 3rd rounder only a year ago. Probably don't want to give up on him. Yeah, he can catch the ball. He's pretty good. And then this kid, Israel Abonaconda, I can't stop talking about him. He's looked really good in preseason. I think a 5th or 6th round pick this year. Bam Knight, who was a solid fill-in back last year when Hall got hurt. Just wasn't any room for him. The Vikings got Jalen Reagor, tried to trade him. No one wanted him because he's horrible at football. He's a free agent. So the Patriots are something weird. Bill Belichick just loves to do weird stuff with roster cuts. So they cut both their backup quarterbacks. Not only Bailey Zappi, who, of course, energized the NFL with how well he played before it all came to an end last year. And Malik Cunningham, another preseason star, like Taysom Hill kind of player. And then they both cleared waivers, so they're both back on the practice squad. And they're not adding another quarterback. So I don't know what Bill was doing, but don't know what the point of that was, but okay, cool. Saints cut Bradley Roby, who's going to be their starting slot corner, so that was a big move. A couple of kicker trades. The Titans trade for Nick Folk, who lost the kicking battle in New England, so he's in Tennessee. Broncos trade for Will Lutz, so Will Lutz rematched with his old head coach Sean Payton in Denver. So Saints are going to go with a rookie kicker as well. But Dolphins made a couple of moves. They traded young corner Noah Igbaini from a 1st rounder to Dallas for safety Calvin Joseph, so they both swapped defensive backs. Miami cut running back from Myles Gaskin. Too many cooks in the kitchen, though. Jeff Wilson did just get hurt. He's out for the first 4 weeks. He's on injured reserves. Now it's just Raheem Mostert, the rookie Devin the Chain 3rd round pick, and Salvon Ahmad the first 3 weeks. Myles Gaskin signed with the Vikings, who cut Dwayne McBride. So the top 3 backs now are Alexander Madison, Myles Gaskin, and Ty Chandler. I think it's a rookie 7th round pick. Eagles made a move. They traded a 2025 6th for Albert O. I cannot remember the last name, so I'll say Albert O. And a 25 7th. Really good move for the Eagles to give up nothing to get a guy who I do think is an okay tight end. A really good tight end, too, behind Dallas Goedert. The Giants activated Wanda Robinson off the PUP list, and they cut Jameson Crowder. Ryan Jensen's unfortunately out for the year for the Bucs. They're all-pro center. More knee complications from the injury that kept them out most of last year. Bucs going to be really bad this year. A couple other injuries. The Browns kick returner Jakeem Grant is out for the season for a ruptured patella tendon. But they did also activate Marquise Gilman off the non-football injury list. He had a blood clot issue, so maybe he can return kicks to them. He's very fast. Chief receiver carrier Tony could play week 1. From his training camp injury. I heard Justin Ross and Rashee Rice. Ross has missed his first 2 years with back problems, dating back to college, and Rashee Rice is a rookie. They're going to be to start as package players and hope that they'll be starters by the year's end. And then Sky Moore apparently should have a big role, I'm hearing. And Tony could play week 1. I'm telling you, this chief receiving core could surprise people. It's very young and very talented and very fast. Terry McLaurin might miss week 1 with turf toe, so we'll keep your eye out on that. Bears plays off starting O guard Tevin Jenkins on IR, so that's a bit of a loss the first month of the year. Jonathan Taylor's not traded. Colts didn't get any offers that they liked, apparently. And he's now on the pup list. What are they doing? I don't know. The Raiders came to terms with Josh Jacobs, 1 year, $12 million. So we're able to sign him. He gets an extra not even $2 million from the franchise tag. Von Miller is on the pup list for sort of the torn Achilles or torn ACL. Dalvin extended Zach Seiler as one of the D linemen, 3 years, $30.7 million, $20 million guaranteed. So a big contract for a guy that's not even a starter. Vikings extend TJ Hockenson 4 years, $68.5 million. So big deal for him, league's best tight ends. That happened not too long ago. Chiefs plays all-pro D tackle Chris Jones under restricted list. He's been holding out because he wants a contract extension. He's making $20 million this year, but all these D tackles are getting paid. Jeffrey Simmons, Quentin Williams, Dr. Lawrence. He wants his, I guess. And there was a rumor that came out that Steve Keim, the former Cardinals GM, had their head coach at the time, Steve Wilkes, was a burner for when he got suspended. So proves how bad of a GM he really was. And only other things I have is Jerry Jeudy is out a few weeks with a hamstring problem, so he might miss the start of the season. And Gil Brandt just passed away at 91, unfortunately. Rest in peace to him. He was a famous executive for the Dallas Cowboys who turned him into America's team, helped build those teams in the 90s, so rest in peace to him. So shout out to Victor Hovland for winning the Tour Championship, wins $18 million. Really good player. He's had a great year. $18 million, that's a lot of money. And his caddy gets 10% of that, so whoever his caddy is just made a lot of money as well. And before I sign off, the American Ryder Cup team is all set. Ryder Cup is coming up. It starts September 29th. So in about a month. The automatic qualifiers for the U.S. team were Sky Scheffler, who's had just an incredible year, Patrick Cantley, Alexander Schauffele, Brian Harmon, Wyndham Clark, and Max Homa. The captain's pick, by the captain is Zach Johnson, who was a solid pro in his day. Doesn't really play too much anymore. Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Kyle Morikawa, Ricky Fowler, Sam Burns, and Justin Thomas. Overall, I do like the team. It's very young, but I think there's some guys like people may not know a lot about, like Wyndham Clark has had a great year. Max Homa hasn't had a great year, but he's a very talented young golfer. I know Justin Thomas hasn't had a great year, but he's one of the best players in the world. Like, you don't leave him off the Ryder Cup team. He's also been a very good Ryder Cup player. Like, I know Ricky Fowler, last couple years hasn't gotten his playing. He's never been a good Ryder Cup player, but still, he's still one of the best players in the world. He won a tournament a couple months back. Kyle Morikawa is phenomenal. Koepka is a phenomenal player. Even Spieth is still a really good player. And and Scheffler is a stud. When they won it last year in dominant fashion, finally, we thought, this team's gonna be stacked for years, and we'll live stuff. It's not as stacked we thought it would be this year, but I still do like the team. So we'll see what the European team looks like. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.